G'day everybody, welcome to the inaugural episode of the Pressure Point podcast. My name is Quinn DeLuca and I'm joined by my co-host Marcus Squatto. Marcus, how are you today on our first episode?
Good mate, good mate. What a time to be alive. Footy's back. Debut of our podcast.
It's all very exciting. Now why don't we tell everybody why are we doing it? What made you want to just start this podcast with me?
So I've always wanted to go down the sport media path. So I found this as a good pathway to get some experience with it, and just to sort of get my name out there as well. So I love talking footy, love talking sport, and unfortunately I'm stuck doing that with you. So, but things could be worse.
Well, there could be, exactly right. There could be worse people to do it with. Thanks for that. But I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I'm going down a sports media path at the moment. I'm currently doing a course for it, and this just seems sort of the best way to push myself into the door. I love listen to the radio about footy and all that. I listen to football podcasts as well. So I just thought, why not jump into something I already love? And you were the best bloke to do it with at the time. Maybe not now, but at the time when I first decided, you were the best bloke to run with. So
yeah, right man, right time.
Exactly right. Now I feel like this should be down your path. Why don't you tell everybody why the iconic name Pressure Point?
I think the main footy nuts out there will know what Pressure Point means. So it is from the 2009 Brownlow Medal when Fev went absolutely bonkers, and I had about 50 beers in an hour, and Channel 9 gave him the reins to the street talk on the footy show, and the rest is history. He got sacked from Carlton, and then his life got very interesting after that. But so if you haven't seen the video, it's definitely worth a watch. We'll put a link in that in the description, but it is a great video, and that is the reason why we've done it. So Fev referenced Pressure Point a lot in that video, and it was very funny. So that's why we've sort of run with it, and we feel like it's quite relevant to what we're going to be doing as well. We're going to talk about the big topics in footy, like the teams under pressure, players under pressure, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be pretty heated at times, so we thought it'd fit in well with what we're going to do. So that's where the meaning we've named it that.
Exactly right. Now, does the name bring up any bad memories for you? Obviously, that's what led to Fev getting sacked, and you're a big Carlton man, as everyone knows. Surely that brings back some haunting memories.
Absolutely, yeah. So I remember at the time I was absolutely distraught when Fev left Carlton. He was my childhood hero growing up, so when he left, it was devastating, because at that time Carlton was sort of pushing in up the ladder, and we had Chris Judd in his prime as well, so things were looking up. Fev just came off a Coleman medal season as well, so we thought, how good's this? Premiership could be a lot sooner than we thought, and then he decided to absolutely send it at the Brownlow and pretty much ruin those hopes. So. As I said, he was my favourite player growing up. So when he left, it was devastating, and for a lot of Carlton fans as well. So, but now I look at that Brownlow medal and absolutely laugh. I loved it at the time, but it's fine now. How long ago was it now? 11 years ago?
About 11 years. I think Fev being the bloke he is, looking back, it's probably the only way he was really going to send himself out of a club. So it's probably a good thing.
Sums up his career, doesn't it?
That's
just
right.
Just a loose cannon.
Now, I know I've had a few people upset with me that I didn't get them to join me as my co-host for the podcast. So I'll just talk about how we know each other.
How do we know each other?
We know each other through a very close mutual connection. I'm lucky enough to have the privilege of calling your younger sister my girlfriend. So we've met that way, known each other for the last couple of years, and I think pretty much from the get-go, the main thing we spoke about was footy, and it really only made sense that you may as well do it and let everyone else listen in.
We only just started talking as well. I've only just let you into my life, so
I appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity.
It took you 2 years to win me over. But.
Well, being a Richmond supporter, coming to a Carlton household, it took a bit, but persevered and I got through.
That's it.
So thanks for keeping me on board. Now, on speaking of that, I think we should thank a few people before we get into it for making everything possible. I'd like to thank Enzo Aliotta for producing this beautiful Pressure Point logo that we've got up here.
What a man.
Elisa, my girlfriend, Marcus' sister, for being our marketing manager and taking care of all our socials. And finally, and I don't take any pleasure in doing this, but Jess Squatto for thinking of the podcast name, and give all credit to her for thinking of that one.
She's been asking us all week to make sure we credit her with that. So any opportunity for her name to get out there, she'll absolutely take.
So there you go, Jess. That's for you. Now, Marcus, why don't you tell us about your favourite footy memory? Let's get right into the footy talk now. What's your favourite footy memory?
So as a Carlton supporter, there's not a lot. But my first real footy memory would be that 99 prelim. I was still very young, so I don't really remember it too much. But it is, for a lot of Carlton supporters, one of the greatest days. Beating Essendon by a point, our arch rival. That was great. Don't remember too much of it, but I do remember the scenes that happened afterwards. But the one that I do remember the most, and one that I talk about a lot, and that we've watched a fair bit together, is the 2013 elimination final against Richmond. 95,000 people. We finished 9th. We came in at Essendon's expense, which is even better. Chris Judd played on one leg and absolutely dominated. Nick Duigan was an emergency.
The sub before the game.
Didn't even do the warm-up. It comes in and kicks 4 goals. And I believe it was on Alex Rance as well. But that's a separate story.
Yet. Leave him alone.
And that was easily the best footy game I've been to, just in terms of the crowd atmosphere and just the way the game sort of panned out. It was, we were down by 35 points and stormed back in that third quarter. I think it was Eddie Betts' last game for Carlton. It was a huge day. And something I'll never forget. And I think the only game that can top that for me would be a Carlton flag, I reckon.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
Not for anyone else, but just you. But anyway.
Just me. So what about you? What's your favourite?
Probably every round one game since 2013, I reckon. Probably up there. Nah, in all seriousness, I'd say, unlike you guys, I think with Richmond, I've got a few to pick from. 2 big notable ones, of course. But I think I'd say a bit of an outlier here, but round 23 in 2014 against the Swans, we're playing up in Sydney, and we had to win our last 9 games of the season to play finals. And we'd won 8. We came up against the Swans, which were a much better side. And we rolled them. We rolled them over there in Sydney. Dustin Martin had a one-on-one with Richards. Kicked the ceiling goal. It just, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable experience. I mean, obviously 2017's grand final was right up there as well. But I think just to step outside the box a little bit, definitely that round 23 game was right up there for me.
That's right. And that's when Alex Rance really established himself as the best defender in the comp, didn't he? That game, I remember he just dominating that game.
That was I'm pretty sure that was his first All-Australian year as well.
Yeah.
So, his first of 5.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. So we'll move on. So before round 1, I did my 2020 predictions and what I thought the season would pan out and what would happen. And so that lasted a week. And then then footy finished for about 3 months. But we'll revisit them now, and we'll go through what we think 2020, how 2020 is going to unfold. So I went with my premiers being Richmond, runners-up West Coast, Brownlow medal Patrick Cripps, of course, the Coleman medal Tom Lynch. I thought he finished off 2019 unbelievably well, and I think he's a very hard man to stop when he's at full flight. My biggest improver, I'm not being biased here, but I do think the Blues are going to rise up. Not rise up to finals, but I think they're going to do a fair jump. A biggest slider will be the Cats. I just feel like they're aging and they're just too reliant on Dangerfield, Ablett and Selwood, who are all 30 and 30 plus now. So I think the Cats are going to slide. Biggest news story, I think Ken Hinkley's going to be sacked by Port. They've under-delivered a fair bit now. So with the team that they've got, so I think he's under a lot of pressure, and I don't think he's going to last the season. My player to watch will be Sam Doherty. I think 2 years out of the game, he's in his round 1 performance shows how good he is and how good of a player he used to be as well. So I think he's going to be the one to watch this year. My most improved player is going to be Christian Petrarca from Melbourne. He's got a lot of potential, and I think this year he's going to explode. And then the wooden spoon is the Gold Coast Suns for me, which I think is everyone else's as well.
Yeah, the Gold Coast is definitely my wooden spooners as well.
Yeah.
I have to agree with you on the premiership front. I think the Tigers will hopefully get their 3rd in the last 4 years. So I think the Tigers are going to take the premiership. I reckon the runners-up will be Collingwood. So I'm hoping for a big Richmond Collingwood grand final, even if there are no fans there.
Should have happened last year.
Should have happened last year. We missed out. I think Collingwood will probably take that next step this year. I think those will be the two teams. Brownlow medalist, I can't see anyone other than Patrick Cripps winning that. I think Patrick Cripps has got the Brownlow nailed in. Same as you, I agree. Tom Lynch for the Coleman. I think he's just going to... With Jack Rewalt alongside him as well, I think Jack Rewalt's become a more selfless player. Handball and getting rid of the footy a lot more and taking shots instead of taking shots himself. So I think Lynch will really take opportunity of that, and I think he'll win the Coleman.
Biggest improver?
I think the biggest improver, I agree with you as well, Carlton. I really see them. Last year they were showing really promising signs. Either Carlton or the Doggies, actually. I think the Doggies are coming back as well. Yep. I think I see the Dogs really coming up. The biggest slider, I think Hawthorn. I think Hawthorn were coming up, but I don't know if they're they've made a push for finals, but I don't know if they're gonna make it any further. If they're just gonna stagnate a little bit, like Richmond in 2013, 14, 15 there, where they just really couldn't get past that elimination final stage. It'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they can make a push, but I don't really see it happening.
Yeah.
What else? What have I missed?
Biggest news story.
I think Melbourne's going to be in that conversation. I feel like they got away with their poor performances last year. I think they're gonna get recognised. There's no hiding this year with only playing each team once.
Yeah.
I reckon they're really gonna. I think they're gonna sort of be in the news, potential coach sacking, etc., etc. So yeah.
They got it very lightly last year, I feel.
For making a prelim the year before to coming out last year and being shocking. I don't see how they got away with it, and I feel like this year they won't. So
yeah. And your most improved player, last one?
Most improved player? Ooh. I don't know. It's a tough one. I reckon Connor Rosie from Port Adelaide. I feel like he was sort of just getting better and better last year. Each game he went, and he's only young, so it's only really up for him to go at this point. So I think Connor Rosie,
Yep. Nice one. All right. So that's pretty much our predictions for the year. We'll see what happens in 17 weeks' time. There are only 17 rounds this season, so see how that goes.
Soon finishes at the pointy end.
That's it. All right, so we'll move on to our review of round one, which feels like an absolute lifetime ago. And there's no better way to start it than a game between Richmond and Carlton. So
two best in the league, so we'll go for a run with that. Obviously, that was all the way back on the 19th of March. Richmond did get the win that game, 16 goals, 9, 105 to Carlton's 12 goals, 9, 81. I'll just talk a bit about what I liked from the Tigers. I thought the Tigers obviously had their really great start at the beginning. They kicked 4 goals to nothing to start the game. Really used the ball super well. They just sort of were all over Carlton. Carlton didn't really look like jumping on top of them at all. Jack Rewalt sort of took hold of Jones early. And Dustin Martin was just doing what Dustin Martin does best, I guess. And Dion Prestia, once again, a little bit under the radar, got his 25 disposals. So, I thought Richmond did really well in that sense. Probably dropped off a little bit to the end, but not to take credit away from Carlton that definitely made that happen, as I'm sure you're about to let me know all about it.
That first half was very concerning. It's hard not to go to that stage where you're like, oh, not this again. It's going to be one of those seasons again. After half time, we played very good footy. We pretty much the better side in that second half. Really stormed back, especially that early part of that last quarter, led by Paddy Cripps, who was incredible.
Can anyone stop him?
Well, he did get. I'd love to say no, but he did get stopped a few times last year when he did get tagged. At his best, he's unstoppable. But my key highlight for the match was Jack Martin kicking 4 goals in that third quarter. First game for the Blues, he looked unstoppable. Like he looked scary. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes for the rest of the year. And Levi Casbolt for me is probably one of the most improved players in the game. So his second half of 2019 was great. Can pretty much play at any end of the ground too. So, and he was great against you guys that night as well. So I think those 3 things from the Blues was really impressive. It's just a shame that we started so poorly, because I think if we didn't start so poorly, who knows what could have happened. by the end of the game. So because we only lost by, what was it, 24 points. So
Yeah, I think the Tigers jumping you at the beginning there
Yeah.
really hurt.
the same thing happened the year before as well, where you guys
Yeah.
got a big jump and then we came back but just couldn't reel it in. So, but no, it is good signs. But yeah, it's just hard to tell what's sort of going to happen.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of questions about Jack Martin coming from the Suns over
Yeah.
to Carlton, talking about whether or not he was just looking good because he was in a team like the Gold Coast. He didn't really have anyone else to outshine him, but I think he really obviously stepped up and proved that he's going to make it big even down here in the Melbourne side. So
Absolutely.
I was really excited. And now speaking of Jack Martin, here at the Pressure Point podcast, we're going to run a little voting competition where we'll be giving 3 votes, 2 votes and 1 vote to a player for each game. And at the end of the year, whoever's got the most will win the Pressure Point Player of the Year award. Now for our 3 votes, we've both mutually agreed that Jack Martin will take that with his 4 goals and 17 disposals. So, and his 4 goals are all in the third quarter as well. That's a pretty handy for third quarter. The 2 votes, we've given to Dion Prestia from Richmond. He had his 25 touches, kicked a goal, 72% disposal efficiency. It's pretty handy. And then, as we mentioned before, Patrick Cripps with the 1 vote, can't look past him. He had 31 disposals. 17 of those were contested, and he had 10 clearances.
Yeah. Before we move on from that game, is Dion Prestia now Richmond's best player?
I think he is. I think in the sense that not talent-wise, but one of the most important players of the team, him or Kane Lambert, because they allow Dustin Martin to go push forward and kick goals, whereas before we had Darren in the team, Dusty was purely reliant to staying in the midfield, and we weren't having the pressure or the strength up forward that we got now. So I really think Dion is probably up. Yeah, I reckon he is.
Yeah, it's a good call.
All right, so we'll move on to the second game of the round, Western Bulldogs versus Collingwood, Friday 20th of March. The Bulldogs were defeated 5-4, defeated by the Pies 13-8-86. Now that game, Pies really took off to a good start, a bit like the Tigers. They kicked the first 4 goals of the game with Elliott, Cox, Hoskin Elliott and Brodie Grundy all kicking those. Some exciting things, seeing the Brown family legacy continue. Tyler Brown played his first game for the Pies, which was good to see. Also good to see Dogs debutant Ben Cavara kick his first goal with his first kick in AFL footy. So always nice to see a debutant come out and do that. Josh Bruce, first game with the Bulldogs. Big questions around him, whether he was going to keep up his form. He kicked a goal midway through the third term, so, it was looking all right. But really, that was pretty much all the Dogs fans had to smile about, with Collingwood dominating with inside 50s, 42-22, and they came out winning by 52 points. So Collingwood definitely had their better match.
Very disappointing the Dogs were.
Yeah, I think after last year, they just pushed in the finals. And I think people were looking at them to make a better performance in that round 1, especially against one of the top sides. They had to put in a better effort than they did. So
yeah. All right. So next game, we've got GWS taking on Geelong. So this was a battle of the heavyweights from 2019. The Giants ended up getting a hold of the Cats by 30 points. They started very strongly and didn't really look back from there. One thing I noticed was Toby Green. He's an out-and-out superstar. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I love Toby Green. Like I love the way he plays. Like he's just got that. He's just different.
You either love him or you hate him. I feel he's a bit smug, and some people really love that, and some people can't stand him.
I love the passion that he plays with. It's good. And you can't fault him because he's a very good player.
Yeah, he backs it up.
Yeah. So Toby Green bobbed up with 4 goals. So it was quite impressive. But one thing that took my eye was Harry Perriman. Kicked 4 goals and had 20 disposals. So he was very impressive for the Giants. Usually plays as a defender, so he went up forward and kicked 4. Although Gary Abbott still looked quite good for the Cats. What is he, 35, 36 years old now, and he's still playing quite well. A little bit concerning that he's still one of their best players, but it's good to see the little champ keep doing his thing. So my votes for the game, I gave Mitch Duncan 1 vote. He kicked 3 goals, had 21 disposals, and went at 81% as well. So he had a pretty solid game for the Cats. Toby Green got my 2 votes. As I mentioned, he kicked 4 goals, had the 16 touches, and the 7 score involvements as well. And then my 3 votes went to Harry Perriman. So as I said, he got 4 goals, 20 disposals, and went at 85%. So he had a very, very good game. And it was a pretty pretty dominant performance from the Giants, which shows that they're looking good for another tilt at the flag. So let's see if they can go that one step further this year.
See if we can make a run.
Yeah.
Speaking of dominant games, I covered the Port Adelaide Gold Coast game. Safe to say it wasn't the most exciting game of the round. Gold Coast only kicking 4 goals, 5-29 to Port's 10 goals, 16-76. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about in this game. Gold Coast really given some signs of having another disappointing season. Port was really in control pretty much the whole game. And even though they weren't playing against a formidable opponent, just the way they moved the ball and used the footy, it really looked like being a side that could be playing finals come pointy end of the season. So it was really positives coming from Port. Once again, the game featured another debutant kicking his first goal with Mitch, and excuse the pronunciation here, but Mitch Georgiades taking those honours.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you. But I think the Gold Coast really might have another long season coming their way if they don't find themselves hitting another gear anytime soon. They're just not looking at making any sort of impact. So that's, I think, why they were both our wooden spooner tips for the year. For the votes for this game, I gave 1 vote to Gold Coast first gamer, Matthew Rao. He had 19 disposals, 11 contested, and 2 score involvements, which I think, considering the team didn't really do much and it was his first game, he really stood up and has got some promising signs ahead. My 2 votes went to Brad Ebert. He had 20 disposals, 9 score involvements, and a goal. And my 3 votes went to the former Lion, Tom Rockcliffe. He had 26 touches, 5 score involvements, and 7 inside 50s. So he really had a field day out there.
All right. So Gold Coast just doing Gold Coast things, eh?
Yeah, nothing's changed there, unfortunately, for the Suns.
All right, next game. So this was the early game on the Sunday. It was between North and on the Saints. A very low-scoring game and a very weird game as well. So the Saints got out to a pretty handy lead in the first half, and then North reeled it back quite quickly, and then ended up getting in front late and holding on for a 2-point win, which was pretty disappointing if you're a Saints fan, considering they've got a lot of expectation this year. But a good thing for the Saints that game was their debutant Max King kicking a goal in his debut. Obviously, a lot of hope, a lot of hype around him as well. So for Saints fans to finally get a glimpse of him and kick a goal in his debut was good to see. In fact, the Saints had a lot of debutants that game. So they had Paddy Ryder, Brad Hill, Dan Butler, and Zach Jones all play their first game for the Saints. So they had a new look side out there almost. So, but yeah, they did look good for the first half, and then they severely dropped off. As I said, the Kangas they really stormed back into the game in that third quarter. Ben Cunnington really led from the front. He kicked 2 late clutch goals to put him in front both times. So he was super. So in saying that, Ben Cunnington did get my 3 votes. So he had the 25 disposals, 16 of them contested, and those last late couple of goals as well. 2 votes went to Jack Billings. He was probably St Kilda's best player. 2 goals, 18 disposals, and went at 89% as well. So he had a pretty solid game. Then I gave 1 vote to Jai Simcombe from North. The youngster had 23 disposals and kicked a goal, so he was quite impressive for the Roos as well. So, so interesting game and a bit concerning if you're a Saints fan, for sure.
Yeah, very disappointing from the Saints. I really thought when you have a lead like that, you should probably hold on to it.
Yeah.
They were the better team for sure. And players like Zach Jones coming in the side as well really bring some extra, probably some toughness to the game that I think the Saints are perhaps lacking. So it'll be interesting to see how they go for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Hawthorn Brisbane now. Hawthorn beat Hawthorn came in as the underdogs, I would have thought. And they came out defeating Brisbane 14 goals 690 to Brisbane's 9 goal 862. I really thought that Brisbane would walk into this game as the favourites, having a 4-game winning streak over the Hawks, and despite exiting last year's finals in straight sets, I think they're expected to cause more problems for a lot of teams this season. So with what was a tight contest pretty much until the last quarter, the Hawks shared a fair bit of the love with Wingard, Bruce, and even the veteran Burgoyne all kicking 3 goals apiece. Big man Jonathan Patton slotted his first goal for his new club, which I think was good to see him back out in the park. And Harris Andrews continued his All-Australian form for the Lions down back. Really up to the last quarter there, the Hawks blew away in the final term, winning by a comfortable 28 points. My 1 vote has to go to the veteran Sean Burgoyne. At his age, to still do what he was doing, 3 goals, 6 score involvements, and 90% efficiency. I thought that was pretty handy. My 2 votes go to Lachie Neale from the Lions. He had 26 touches, 16 contested, and a goal. And then Chad Wingard at Hawthorn. He got my 3 votes with 3 goals, 7 score involvements, and his 20 touches.
Beautiful. All right. So last game of the round, bit of a doozy this one. So it was between West Coast and Melbourne. So before the game, both teams were told that footy's going to be canned for the foreseeable future. So it was a bit of a weird one to go into, but it did not stop West Coast from absolutely dominating the game. They started strongly and never really looked back. The D's were goalless at quarter time as well. And their form from 2019 looks to have continued on into 2020. So they were pretty poor. Although Jack Viney was very dominant for Melbourne, picking up 34 disposals. He was very good. And for the Eagles, the usual suspects of Andrew Gaff, Luke Shuey, Nick Nat, all dominated for them. But in saying that, West Coast only ended up winning by 27 points. So the scoreboard did flatter Melbourne a little bit, considering how dominant West Coast were. But my votes in the end, so I gave 1 vote to Luke Shuey, 27 disposals, had 116 fantasy points as well, so it's a pretty solid game from him. 2 votes to Andrew Gaff, 30 touches, a goal, and 87% efficiency. I feel like Gaff does that every week. He's just a very consistent player. And then my 3 votes went to Jack Viney from Melbourne, 34 disposals, 20 of them contested, a goal, and 132 fantasy points. So he pretty much played a lone hand for the D's in what was a very disappointing afternoon for them. And geez, if that continues on in 2020, I think they're in big trouble. So, but that was round 1, which I feel like was a lifetime ago. But I'm glad we can move on from it now. And
we're finally looking at round 2, which is been a long time coming. Touching on round 1, how did you go watching the games with no crowds and just complete silence after every goal?
It was weird. Yeah, it was very weird. It just felt like you were watching like a practice game or like one of the preseason games. It just didn't feel right. Like I know every year, like with the Richmond Carlton game, like we're always pumped for it and can't wait for it to come on. But this year was just a different feeling. Like it was just like, it's just not going to be the same. And even watching it, we were just like, well, this is not right. Yeah. Like, it just didn't feel right. Just didn't feel like footy. It was just different. So, but I've changed my tune on it a little bit now because now that we're just so desperate for footy to come back, it's like, well, fuck it, we'll just cop the no crowds. Like,
I think at this point we'll take anything we can get. I mean, the replays have been good just to give us something to watch, but when you know the score, it's the outcome, it's not different. The same. So I think I'm obviously real pumped to get footy back.
Yeah.
Now they're talking about putting fake crowd noises in to compensate for the awkward silence after every goal. What are your thoughts?
I don't mind it. Like it's probably better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Like, I don't mind as long as it doesn't sound too weird or too cringe. Yeah. I think it's fine. Like I know in the soccer overseas they're going to replicate what FIFA 20 do. Like they're just going to get the crowd noise from that game and put it into their broadcast. So. I don't know if the AFL is going to do that, considering AFL Evolution's a pretty rubbish game. But I think they need to do something. I think they need to do some sort of noise, don't they?
Yeah, definitely do. As long as they time it well, and the crowd volume doesn't go up when someone's taken an open mark on the wing for no reason.
Yeah,
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't want it out of sync, do you?
I think I think even if they're going to do what they did in the old days and have the broadcast, 30 minutes behind.
Yeah,
it's not exactly live. If the sound matches up, it'll be a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Lot easier to watch.
Yeah.
Now, not only are they going to put some fake crowd noises in, there's talks of cardboard cutouts sitting in the stand watching. What do you reckon the players are thinking? Looking in the stands and seeing some motionless fans.
It's more distracting, isn't it?
You'd think so.
It's bizarre. I don't get that at all.
Now, I really reckon if we're gonna go down that footpath, I think we should really take note from the Korean Soccer League. And for those who don't know, the Korean Soccer League dressed up a bunch of sex dolls and had them in the crowd. Now, the only good thing about, I'd say, having a sex doll over a cardboard cutout is the sex dolls always look like they're shocked when someone's kicked a goal. So
they'd be good at a Carlton game, wouldn't they?
Always got exactly right. That'd be the first time Carlton fans have had something to open their mouths about. So, look, I think they're probably a miss. You don't need those.
I think they're unnecessary.
I don't see how those are happening. But anyway, it's been a long time since round 1. I mentioned a lot's happened in the off season. one of the big talking points was the whole Jack Stevens incident. Obviously, before he left the Saints, he had a break with mental health. He's kind of the Cats, and there's a bit of an unknown controversy about what's happened. We know there was a stabbing. That's about all we know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the media should, or do you think Jack Stevens should have to reveal more of what happened, or what are your thoughts?
It's a really tricky one. I think as long as he tells the club and fills in the club of what's happening, like, you don't know, it could be super personal. You know, like, why does he need to publicize the whole thing to everyone? Yeah. I feel like as long as his family are aware of it, the footy club, his mates, his close mates, like, who else really needs to know? Like, it's none of our business. Like, obviously he's been stabbed for whatever reason. Like, does it really? If you got stabbed at the footy club,
yeah,
different. But he's been stabbed. Like, just leave it at that. He's been stabbed. Don't know by who. Don't know if it was himself. Don't know who it was. I reckon just leave it at that. That's my opinion anyway. And I think we should just move on from it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's back at the club. He's training, so we know he's okay.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, the biggest thing is as long as the people that need to be made aware of it are made aware of what's happened. Yeah. I think purely more for his personal safety and mind state and all that. I think those people need to know to make sure he's in a good place. But he's back at training. He's all smiles. So I think, we can probably move on from that one. Yeah. Being a Carlton supporter, Charlie Curnow got ruled out for the season. Really hasn't had a good run. Do you think he should be doing more to care for his body, or do you think he's just been unlucky?
I think he's been very unlucky. I know a lot of people out there probably think he's a bit careless, but I don't know, like, what? He's an AFL player. He's one of the best players at the club. Like, why is he? Why would he be? You know, he's under a lot of, like, supervision with his program and everything like that. So I think he's fine. It's just he's just been super unlucky. But in saying that, like, we didn't have him for the second half of 2019, and as soon as he went out, we actually started playing a lot better. So it's not like, absolutely, we'd love to have him in the side, but, you know, we can play without him. We've sort of gotten used to it. But yeah, it's very frustrating considering how good he is and how good he can be as well. So he just reminds a lot of Carlton people of Cooter. So he's just the way he's built and the way he runs around the ground, and
even the curly hair.
The curly hair, like, he's literally like a Cooter clone. So hopefully it can come back bigger and better next season. But I think he's been ruled out for the whole season, hasn't he?
At the moment, they've ruled him out. Yeah.
So well, there's going to be a fair chunk of it anyway. So it is frustrating, but I think we'll do all right without him, and it'd be an absolute bonus when we do get him back for sure.
100%. I think being a shortened season is probably a good year for him to. Well, not that there's ever a good year, but I think it's probably a better of all years to sort of sit out and make sure he gets well and ready for next season.
For sure.
Now, hopefully next season, as I was talking about this year, they've got shortened quarters. There were talks of them perhaps pushing that into next year and beyond. I'm not a fan of the shortened quarters myself. I don't see the point in it. I understand they did it this year because they wanted to start player management basically and get players fit, ready to play more than one game a week to try and cram games in. I understand that. I can't see any purpose of shortening games heading into the future. It blows my mind why you'd want to go to if you're going to the football and you want to see less football, you're not really a fan.
Exactly.
No one wants to see less football. No. So I mean, I don't know if you have anything different to say on that, but I think the short quarters, I'm glad they've scrapped the idea for next year and beyond.
Well, you look at the scores from round one games, how low they were, and that's got a lot to do with the shortened quarters. You know, if they want the product to look better, you need more scoring, and you just didn't get that in round one. And if they shorten the quarters for good, you're never going to see a player kick 100 goals again. You're probably rarely going to have games score over 100 points. You know, it's just going to take out a lot of things that makes footy so unique. So has there been official word that they're not doing it going forward? They're not. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So fair enough this season because it's sort of like crammed in into unique season. But going forward, I'm not for it at all. So
that's good. Now, as everyone can see on the cameras, we've got the big Freeze beanies out here. The Freeze M&D fight is still happening this Monday coming up. Obviously, this is a really good cause, and I encourage everybody out there to try and grab yourself a beanie and support this incredible cause with Neil Danaher I don't know, still fighting like the machine that he is, and
It's crazy.
bringing positivity and awareness and all the rest of it to this cause. So I'm really glad that's still happening. And disappointing we won't have a live game playing that day, but in the current circumstances, I think it's great that the players are still going down the slide. Do you have anyone in particular happy to see go down the ice this year?
Well, Big Cripper's going down it, isn't he? So that'll be interesting to see what he dresses up with.
Swim choice.
The big fella. So, yeah, be looking forward to seeing what he does. It's always a good laugh every year, isn't it? I think, was it last year the coaches did it, or the year before the coaches did it, and they all
Dressed up.
They all did a pretty good job at it. So, it's a great cause, and I feel like it's like every year, it's like he's still going. He's like still hanging in there, which is great. Like he's just so strong, such a strong person. So, So I encourage everyone to donate to it. He's doing some great things in that space. So, definitely get around it.
Most definitely. Now, I know that's not all about this, but I personally am really looking forward to seeing Mitch Robinson go down that slide.
Yeah.
I feel like he's such a character. Just seeing what he'll dress up as and the way he'll behave will be
He'll definitely go head first, that's for sure.
will be interesting, and it'll be good seeing it'd be good seeing current players going down the slide this year too. So
it's not usually current players, is it?
No, not normally. So we'll do that. Now, another big topic in the off season was the Lockie Hunter incident. Obviously got caught, one, drink driving, two, breaching COVID-19 restrictions. Disappointing from Lockie for Bulldogs fans.
It's poor, isn't it? Yeah, it is poor. It's just, especially during that time of, the isolation and, the club putting like all their trust in their players to make sure they're sticking with their programs and behaving and doing all those things. And I think he just got into the leadership group as well. So it's not a great look. I'm sure he regrets it deeply. So, it was a hit and run as well. And it was pretty messy.
I know there was more to it. Lockie's personal side, I think there was a lot more going on there, but I think disappointing for Lockie himself.
Yeah,
he knows what he's done. He's not ashamed to admit that he did wrong there, but real disappointing, I think, on that end. So,
also what happened during the week was the Hall of Fame awards. So we had a few former greats get inducted. So we had Lenny Hayes, Jonathan Brown, Simon Black, and we also had John Kennedy Sr. inducted as a legend as well. And the great Dennis Cometti, of course, got inducted into the Media Hall of Fame.
He snuck up on him like a librarian.
He's one of my favourite commentators of all time, Big Dennis. So it's good to see him get recognised. And Big Dean Cox as well from the Eagles got inducted. He was an absolute superstar for them. One of the best ruckmen of all time, is he?
I think he's up there.
Which leads into our engagement question for all you listeners at home. Is Dean Cox the greatest ruckman of all time? So you can find that on our socials. Just write your answer in there. If you don't agree with it, write who you think's better. Feel free to be as biased as you want. We encourage that sort of stuff. Just check out our social media pages to answer that question.
All right, guys, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening into the first episode. Be sure to give it a like, a share, a follow. Please tell a mate. We really do appreciate the love. And be sure to join us for next week where we talk about all the round 2 previews. And we'll see you with episode 2.
Stephen to go. Pressure point.
Pressure point.